Hey everybody, Mark Masters, another Monday night in Harry Reid International Airport in Las Vegas. Was here 2 weeks ago, I think, on a Monday. Here with Drew Davis, all the way from Tennessee. And this is Always Bookin Comedy. Thanks for tuning in. I got some weird light situation going on. We're gonna figure it out. I got a weird. It's called the sun. It's a
Absolutely
special
glowing.
spotlight. I'm glowing. I'm so excited to see Drew and
yeah.
Chad. All right, Drew, how are you doing today? Where are you? Are you in
I'm doing
Tennessee?
well. Yep, I'm currently in Nashville, Tennessee, which is where I'm based out of, and I've had past few months have been able to travel a lot, which has been wonderful. And next couple of weeks, I'm actually kind of in home base, gearing up for whatever's next. And always booking comedy is what I'm going to be
There you
doing.
go. There you
So
go. What do you think about my little soul patch here, my little goatee? You
I
like
like
that?
it. Yeah, it's growing there. How long is it taken to get there?
Well, watch, I'll shave. Huh? Look at that.
I was just say, being Italian, I can grow facial hair in like 30 minutes. So I know for other people, they don't. They have a different problem. So
That's terrific. That's great. Um, well, how did we meet originally? Do you know?
we met. Yes, I do. We met way back when at a World Series of Comedy.
Oh, okay.
Comedy show, contest. It was at Fort Wayne, Indiana, and
Ooh.
yeah, I
Ooh.
remember a couple of things. I remember that was I remember that contest. I remember when I checked into the hotel before going to the contest. They gave me the room key to somebody else's room had already checked in, and it was another comedian. So like I walked in just as he was, chilling in his hotel room, and it was highly awkward. And then when we were leaving the contest, he was calling an Uber, and awkwardly, I was just like, "Well, I mean, I know where you live. You can just ride back with me." And I tried to be as not weird as possible. And then I also remember at that venue we performed at, when I got there, the sign said something like Thursday. World Series of Comedy, Friday, midget wrestling. And I was like,
Yeah.
that's all I need to know about Fort Wayne, Indiana.
Oh my goodness. That was they had great ice cream. I remember that. Or not the
Yeah.
venue, but the town had really good ice cream. And yeah, that show was pretty bad. I actually drew like 2 or 4 people, which I was like half the audience. There were
Oh
more
man,
comics than
isn't
audience.
it
It was
isn't
kind
it
of
rough
brutal.
when your friends come see you? I mean, because like anyone who's watching, I don't know if your watchers are like experienced comedians or people that are just fans of comedy. But if you're just a fan of comedy, you don't know it so well. Uh, we have our shows that tons of people come to and are fun. And when you come to them, you're like, man, this is an awesome show. Then we have our little shows too, where it's just us and a handful of people. And it's always so uncomfortable when you, as the comedian, the one show your friend decides to come to is the one where there's like 4 other people. Um,
Yeah.
so I just did a show in DC a few months ago, and it was a really good show. And I had a friend who I hadn't seen in 7 years come to it. And the last show they had seen was one of those shows where like they were the audience. And so right when I get to the show in DC, at that time, not everyone gotten there yet. So I was like, oh my goodness, so help me. If this person had the next time she saw me 7 years later, and it's still a show where there's 3 people, but it was completely different. Like it filled out. They were a real last minute crowd. Like, I mean, if it started at 7:30, 7:29, nobody there was there, and 7:30, everybody was there. So it worked
That's
out. But at first I was like, she's just going to think I'm the worst. Like,
brutal. Brutal. Yeah, one thing I've learned, like a little actionable tip for folks, the World Series of Comedy, it's a long event. A lot of people have opinions about it. I think it's
mhm,
great if you make it great for yourself. It can be
mhm.
really good. They put a lot of work into it. But I will no longer go to a satellite unless I've heard from somebody that it's going to be a good satellite. Because there are good satollite and less good satellites. And
Right.
actually, next year they're doing less satellites, so they might all be good ones.
They might all be good.
Um,
That I learned. I think I learned that week too about the being intentional about which satellites you sign up for.
yeah.
It's not just about because I think my strategy was let me go with the ones I've never heard of and maybe I'll have a better chance of getting in or
Yeah.
something.
I mean, the other
But
thing is that was 2 years ago, maybe, and I
yeah,
was like, I was a worse comedian. I was
mhm.
not able to pick and choose. Not that I can pick and choose a ton
Yeah.
now, but I can be a little more choosy, and I choose to be a
I
little
feel
more
the same way
choosy.
too. Yeah.
So,
And I think it's good. I think it's good when you're starting or when you're at certain levels to not be choosy and to experience anything. And you might be surprised. You might have a really good experience, but I mean, stage time, and and stuff like credits are credits.
Yeah.
And but there's a point when you can tell yourself like, okay, I'm only gonna go. I'm gonna do this. But like, so for me with the World Series, when I pick the satellites, I pick what are places I'd want to build a relationship. Like, so there was a few. There was like a few that were in Atlanta at comedy clubs. So I was like, yeah, maybe I'll. But what happened this year was literally everyone I picked. I ended up being able to have the opportunity to do one of those last minute wild card slots, but I already had a booked show. And so I had to keep emailing them, no, thank you. And then they even gave me a spot at the main event, and I had something else going on that time, so I had to. I feel like I just was donating to a good cause. My
I mean, it's
registration
not that
was to.
expensive.
Yeah, especially when you do it really early. But I felt bad because I was like, I don't know if it looked like I was intentionally just telling them I wasn't going, but like it just is how the dates fell.
Well,
at the time they were
great.
open.
It's a good problem to have because generally, you're not getting paid when you go to that contest.
Mm-hmm.
But if you have paid work, then it's worth it.
That always comes first. Yeah. And I feel like I always worry about that when I'm telling someone about that, but all comedians understand, because they're doing the same thing on their end too.
So okay, let's rewind. How did you get into comedy?
Okay, yeah. So I've always loved comedy. I think I first started listening to comedy when I was like in middle school or whatever. When I was in high school, I started preaching at 16. And for so many years, everyone would come up to me after a sermon and say like, "Hey, man, preaching never falls, so you should totally try stand-up comedy," which isn't the most encouraging when you're like trying to give people a message about God, and they're like, "Well, I don't know what he's talking about God, but he was hilarious," But so it always been kind of in the back of my head as something I enjoyed and something that honestly random people were encouraging me to try to do. And then when I was about 23 or 24, I was living in Kentucky. I was working at this church. I kind of realized that I was in this little Christian bubble that I wasn't so comfortable with. I mean, everyone I knew was like older or younger versions of myself. And especially from a Christian's perspective, you're supposed to go out and connect with people and share the light of Jesus with them. And I was like, but all these people are fine. They're all from my church, or they're all my youth group, or they're other youth pastors. So I was looking for a reason, I was looking for a community outside of my community. And then I really wanted to try open mic comedy. So I went and I tried it. And I fell in love with the performing aspect of it. But two, I really liked the such a different community than like the church culture that I had been in. For just, I mean, anyone who's gone to an open mic, you'd see the difference between that and like church culture. And it was so funny when I started doing comedy. I kind of had this idea that like, oh man, I'm going to go in here.
That's so funny what you just said. I'm pretty sure I know which culture is a little more educated, a little more
right, absolutely.
Forward.
Yeah, it's funny. Someone really needs. I didn't do this when I was in seminary, but I should have. Someone really needs to write some kind of paper for Christians about how much more accepting open mic culture can be, just in generalness of like everyone's there to do comedy, and that's what kind of unites them, and what like the church and Christianity could learn from that. It would be an interesting paper. I should have done that back when I was having to write papers to graduate, but I didn't.
That's a good reversal. That's funny.
That would have been, yeah. But I did. I feel like I grew so much as a person in just going to like open mics and meeting comedians and becoming part of that culture. And I really think it ended up making me a better person. And then when I eventually got back into ministry for a little bit, it actually made me a better pastor as well. But it definitely both worlds have kind of impacted me a lot, and it even shapes my comedy. The ministry background and the church background and stuff like that, it shapes kind of like how I interact with people and how I try to not get involved in some of the toxic stuff of comedy.
Nice.
So yeah.
So tell me about a booking win you had early on, something you were really excited about.
Yeah. So actually, I noticed this on my Facebook memories just today, and I should go ahead and let the people know in advance. It's really not that big of a deal, but for me, it was a huge deal. Like in hindsight, nothing giant came from it, but I remember thinking it was so cool, and it would have been my first or second year of comedy, and it probably would have been today, about 10 12 years ago. I submitted a joke I had written to like a deck of cards. It was called laughyourbutt.off.com. It doesn't exist anymore. They apparently, my joke and all the other jokes didn't, keep them in business too long. But you got to submit your joke, and they were doing it was like a whole player, like a playing card deck of playing cards, and every card had a different joke. And so mine got on like the four of clubs, which is actually probably one of the lowest numbers in cups. I mean, clubs were the lowest too. So, but I was so excited that like that was like my first published comedy thing. And I felt very cool. And they gave me so many decks of cards, like because ideas you could sell them for merch and stuff like that. But at the time, I wasn't doing the kind of shows where I was selling merch, so they became like anytime I did like I'd go to a Christmas party and they'd do like a white elephant gift exchange. I would give them a deck of cards with my joke on it. Super full of myself, but that I don't know why, but I remember I was so proud of myself for that moment.
That's so funny. I just, piggybacking on fun booking wins. I just did not my first, but one of my first well-paying church gig. I
Ooh,
did
nice.
20 minutes, super clean, like squeaky clean. Like I do an hour kind of regularly, and
Mm-hmm.
I really had to scrub. Not only did I remove like I have a bunch of bits that are like 1 to 3 minutes long, and I'd remove like 2 or 3 of the tags because they just reference
Mm-hmm.
topics that I didn't think were
Yeah.
like Disney clean, and I got rid of entire jokes, and then other jokes I just like changed the wording. Like I had this one joke
Mm-hmm.
where I say nut juice container, and everybody laughs. It's
Yeah.
very silly, immature. But I got rid of the word nut and just said juice container, like so I trimmed it, and it went like I was very proud that I could be funny for 20 minutes and not really like I definitely didn't swear, and I didn't bring
Yeah.
up any adult topics. So I feel like I'm ready now, world. Let's
Yeah.
manifest this.
Yeah.
Let's put this
Absolutely.
20 minutes. Let me get paid.
Yeah.
Somebody out there pay me to do these jokes. So I get paid pretty well.
Yeah. I
I'm
mean,
not
the
gonna
the church
say
gigs
here, but
was like
hundreds
really
of
squeaky.
dollars for
Yeah.
for for 20 minutes is
Yeah.
pretty spectacular. I was real happy about it. They were they were a good audience. Okay, so you got that early booking win. Do you run any shows, or have you over this time?
Yes. So I myself run 3 shows and an open mic. But I started a group last year called the Clean Comedy Collective, and we kind of produce shows mostly in Nashville, but wherever we can.
Okay.
That are I would call them like family friendly shows, because you were talking church squeaky clean. We're kind of the level a little bit looser than that with family friendly, but I'd say we're probably a little bit tighter than like club clean. We're kind of in between. So
Okay.
that's kind of when we started, we kind of had to figure out like, okay, when we say clean comedy, what do we mean? Which is a great question to ask when someone asks for
Oh,
a clean show, isn't it? Because
so
like
confusing.
it could mean whatever we want it to mean.
Yeah.
But so
I almost never ask anymore. I just watch the show because I'm usually
yeah,
like this particular gig. I was the only comic, but like a lot of
yeah.
them, you're like, I'm featuring or I'm headlining, and I just watch and see what the audience wants. And
I
a lot
am
of
I am
times,
I am a chronic people pleaser, and it will drive me crazy if I don't know the lines that I need to stay in. And I'm learning that like when I think I'm going close to out of the lines, I'm probably just fine. But like in my head, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is good. They're gonna boo me, they're gonna cancel me, they're gonna whatever, and like it's fine. Like it's
I
but
find
I
most audiences want you to be dirtier than you are.
yeah, it's funny.
Like whenever you get close to the line, you can tell the
Yeah,
laughs are
that's
bigger.
those are usually the jokes that do the best is when they're just getting to the line. But then once with clean shows, once you go over the line, they hate you. Like you gotta. So it's you can dance to it a little bit. Like yeah, being a little risque might get you some big laughs, might get you some points with the crowd. But if you go over it, they're gonna be like, that was the worst comedian. I can't believe I brought my son or whatever. Like stuff like
Yeah.
that. But I run a show. Well, in Nashville, we have 2 comedy clubs. The smaller one, the Zanies, is the one that everyone knows, and then we have a smaller one called Third Coast Comedy Club, and I run a monthly show there called the Nashville All Stars Comedy Contest. I have a show at a coffee shop about a mile from where I live. We just had our year anniversary show last week, which was so cool. We brought in like it's a secret show, so we never announced the lineup, but we brought like all headliner lineup, and so it was a real treat for the people that came. And then I have another show in the middle of nowhere, West Tennessee, about once a month. It's in Humboldt, Tennessee, which is a place that I would be very surprised if any of your listeners knew existed. But we of course we brag that we're the best comedy show in Humboldt. We're probably the only one that's ever been in Humboldt. And then I run a clean open mic at a juice bar in East Nashville, and it's a vibe. It's definitely interesting. It's fun though. It's as far as our open mics here. It's yeah, and what's funny is like I never went to a juice bar before running a mic in it. Like every week, I just I'll ask the juice tender, the bartender, I don't know, to get. I just like surprise me, make me something, and it's always good. I always enjoy it, but like. I've learned more about juice bars in the past year than like now I feel like I could actually go to a juice bar and like handle myself, do pretty good, like know what to order and everything. But like it's funny.
Do you bring in like speakers and lights and stage or what do you do?
All the one in Humboldt, I bring in my own PA system. And then the other ones all have their own stuff though. But for any comedians listening, if you're someone who likes to produce in shows, having a portable PA system is invaluable. And then adding to that, as you can fund it, the lights and the stage, I mean, having all that ready to go is, I think my next big purchase in that regards will be like a good light that I can use if needed. But the big one is like getting a portable stage. But those things are so expensive for like what feels like not a ton. Like it doesn't.
Yeah. Like I love I have a 3 foot by 3 foot that was maybe $300, maybe a little more.
Yeah.
But the thing, it's bulletproof. It is like I've had 400-pound people on it, and it's awesome. And it's like not great for certain comedians who do like big act outs and are roaming all over the place, but most comics stand in one spot. Right. And it's just high enough to give you some authority with the audience. And it really I feel like it makes a difference. It is a pain in the ass to lug around.
Absolutely, yeah.
But it sets up so
Have you noticed your motion as you've performed as a comedian? Like, I used to be a walk around a little bit comic, and now I've recently discovered I'm just more of a stationary guy. And I don't know if I'm just getting lazier or like what.
I think in the beginning, I was too afraid to move and too like concentrated on like remembering the jokes. And then I went through a phase where I felt looser and I would move around. I feel a little more, I don't know. I feel like it's more dynamic, especially when you're doing a long set. If you stand in the same spot for an hour, not only is it boring for you, but it's boring for the audience.
Yeah. I'm thinking I need to start kind of training myself, especially for those longer sets, to and think of parts of my act. I'm like, okay, move over to the next side or something. Because for some reason, I've just gotten very comfortable just hanging out, just standing. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's fine. It's like I feel like it displays some level of confidence. Because sometimes I watch tapes of myself and I'm like, do you know, he's a Nashville guy. Oh, God. Who's the guy with like the baseball cap? Dusty Slay.
Dusty Slay. Yep.
And he's always like, he's moving his hands all over the place. And he makes a joke about being like a third base coach. But that's how I feel. Like I never know what to do with my hand, and I'm always like, and I watch the tape, and I'm so mortified. Like, Mark, just stay in one position. Like you don't need to move your hands so much.
But we all have like our nervous, and I think as you do it, the longer you do it, and the more comfortable you get up, the less you, or the more you're aware of your nervous tics, and hopefully the less you do them. But like I think the first step is being like, oh, that's something that I do.
Yeah. So this juice bar, are you saying they have like a stage?
They don't have a stage, but they have a sound system. So
they do live music there.
I occasionally they've had like DJs there. Like it's a weird place. It's like
how did you find it?
They found us actually. So I also help with the admin for the Nashville comedy scene in general, and so they reached out. By the way, I feel a sneeze coming on, so if it happens, sorry to any. I don't have COVID. You all are fine, but they reached out to us and they were wanting an open mic, and at the time I was looking for a place for. It's hard to find places for clean open mics. That's what I've learned, because like a lot of the venues that want clean shows, that's not the best place for a clean mic, because you want a place where people can mess up on accident if they're working their clean material, and not like and this guy, the guy who runs the juice bar, he could care less. We could call him tomorrow and be like, we want to make it a dirty mic, and he'd be like, good, I like dirty comedy. So
Yeah.
it's a very safe place for people to work on their clean stuff. So
Huh. That's cool. How does that clean mic work? Do you get like a lot of people who come out for it?
We don't get a ton of people. Some weeks we do. Some weeks it's just a good week to come out or whatever. But we also the timing wise, we have two mics on Thursdays that basically happen at the same time. And so I feel like a lot of people probably go to the other mic, but I found it's very good to have a place for people to work on clean material. And because I know I encourage comedians, you probably do the same thing, but if you're wanting to get into any kind of regular hosting at a comedy club, having 10 to 15 minutes of clean material is an easier way to get plugged in with comedy clubs and stuff like that. So it's important to have a little, and that's kind of the big selling point. It's like, hey, we all got to work on clean stuff. Even if you don't do only clean stuff, like it's good to have a little bit. And so we do have set rules, and whoever's hosting, like I have a kind of a rotation of hosts that help me out with it, which has been great because, like I said, for the past few months, I have not been there much. So like, I get texts all the time, man, you have a great mic, and I'm like, I haven't been there in like 2 months, but thank you, I appreciate it. Yeah, so we tell them our rules, the rules that we give them for the mic. We say we say no cussing, then we say no jokes that are like about sex or sexual stuff, then we say no jokes that are like pro drugs, but we also learned to kind of let them know like innuendo is fine, like use your, it's okay. So but a lot of people I find go to that mic because they hope to get booked on some of our shows, and that's a great way to see you work clean, is to come to the mic. So
Yeah.
because one of my pet peeves is people coming up to me and be like, I want to be on your showcase, I want to try to work clean. I'm like, why don't you want to be on my open mic to try to work clean, and then when you can work clean, we can put you on a showcase.
Right. Do you what are some lessons you've learned running shows?
Running shows, I think
Or mic.
there's a big one that I feel like is the big one I've seen this past year, because I'm relatively new at producing shows. I've run a couple shows here or there, but this past year it's been more of a thing to try to make some more money off of doing comedy. Is you running the shows is a way to do it, and to network with people. And the biggest lesson I've learned is, I'm sure this is something you probably already know, Mark, but there's such a difference between it being a show producer and booker and being a comedian. And they're different hats. And if you always go into producing a show like you're the main comedian, because as the comedian, you want to be the headliner, you want to be the star of the show, you want to just
not necessarily.
Maybe okay. I feel like as a comedian, that's what I do. I want to be the person that's making the most money. I want to be the person who's doing.
What do you mean, like if you're running a monthly?
Oh, but if you are booking the show, you're not that. That's not the attitude. You never want to be the best person on the show.
Got it.
I feel like I learned that there's a different mindset from booking a show and just being booked on a show.
Yeah.
And I've also seen, and if I'm being honest, and with comedians I've worked with, when they're booking the shows, they're thinking of it more like a comedian than they are thinking of it as the booker. Sometimes you want to book, you got this amazing headliner, and so the best thing to do is let me get a great feature so I can really sell out this show and have a legendary time for these people. But the comedy thought, as a comedian, your thought would be, let me book myself as the feature so the headliner can see how amazing I am, so maybe they'll take me on the road with them.
Okay.
But the realistic thought might be I bet you I can find a better feature than me to sell this theater out.
That's
or
interesting.
Whatever.
I never considered doing anything other than hosting
in
a regular show that I run. I mean, I have and I've never done this, but I have thought, well, maybe someday I'll book a host and I'll take a middle spot.
Yeah.
So if I have a taping coming up or something that I really need to practice longer than, if I need 15 minutes or something like that. But the reality is I see these audiences every month, and a lot of them are the same people. So I want less time.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to do more time in a room that you regularly do.
Yeah.
Every now and again, when I travel though, if we're taking a show like a one-off, if I'm thinking about a lineup and if I'm having trouble finding a feature or sometimes even a headliner, I think to myself, well, I can do the time. I
Oh,
know
absolutely. If
so
I'm
yeah.
Yeah, if it's a one-off, I will absolutely make myself the headliner, because I found the venue, I
Hmm.
arranged the money, like I want control over that, and
Hmm.
then every once in a while somebody will step in and then I don't think I can follow, or I think it's
Hmm.
better for the audience if they're the headliner, and then
Yeah.
we'll switch the lineup.
I feel like that
Um,
is such
but
a mature booking thing to do. I did that a few months ago with a show. We had someone drop out, and I was emailing like all these people, and no, but then finally I ran across a name who was like a regular headliner for us, and I was like, you know what? I'll ask. He probably can't do it, and then sure enough, he could do it. And I was like, well, I'm not closing the show anymore. Like I was like,
right.
and I think that is a good comedy booker role, like decision that as a comedian, if you're just thinking about yourself and your personal stand-up career, that's not something you would do, but as a booker and a producer, that's something you learn to do for the good of the show. And I think that's really
Yeah,
important.
well, that's interesting. I think that's the difference. The good of the show doesn't matter as much when it's a one-off on the
Yeah.
road. You
Yeah.
don't care as much, but on your regular show, you're trying to curate a regular audience, and it's really important the good of the show. When you're on the road in the middle of nowhere, sometimes
Yeah.
what's best is what's best for your comedy career, as opposed to what's best for the show. If
Absolutely. And one
I
thing
mean,
are you good at, do you ever book show like book shows that you don't put yourself on? Because I'm just now getting okay with like if I have something else going on over here, I can book this show and I can put reliable people on it. And then the weird thing for me is like, and I can even take a commission of the pay because I'm doing all the production of it. Like
yeah, I've never done that.
when I first
I'm a
started doing that, I was like, I feel like I'm stealing from these people, like I
right.
feel,
I just don't feel confident that somebody else would run the show the way I do.
yeah.
I'm pretty particular about lighting and sound, and a lot of these venues, like where I'm doing shows, I pop them up, and it's
Yeah.
like it's kind of like a don't tell situation, like weird venue, and I'm bringing over $1,000 in equipment to
Yeah,
set
wow.
up.
So yeah, you
And
want in that case you definitely want to make sure you got everything down. I have a few people that I
I'm
trust to run
envious.
a
I'm
show.
gonna say I'm envious of
Yeah.
you being able to do that. I wish I could do that.
It's a I'm getting better at it than I was. It's definitely a new territory for me. One
Yeah.
of the things the Clean Comedy Collective does that has been helping out though is when we see people that have like really good hosting mentality, like they seem like they'd be perfect hosts for some of our shows. We have a role we call the power host. It's just we elect someone to be, and then like we give them opportunities to host the shows for us. And in situations like that, sometimes I'll still come and I'll go feature, do a guest spot or whatever. So I'm also still dealing with the money and the setup and the venue and stuff like that. But it's been one of the cool things for me to see is how much better it's made a few of the hosts that work with us. I
Nice.
can think of a couple people that started working with us and they've hosted more for us. We gave them that role. And like now I would trust them if I wasn't in town to run the show. So,
Nice. That's awesome.
but
All right, we're running out of time. Let's talk about road work. Any good funny road stories?
I have the best road story, at least from my perspective. It's the weirdest one, and I'll be respectful of the fact that we're running out of time. But long story short, I did go perform at Fort Smith, Arkansas, which was kind of a sketchy place. That I actually went there twice. And the reason I came back because they offered me free lodging. So I was like, all right, I'll do a show since you guys are. And so on the second time back, I lost my debit card on the way there, and the but the guy I was staying with, he was like, "It's okay. I'll write you a check or I'll get you some cash to get you home so you can pay the gas." Because I'd been using checks all the way, and and it got to the point where everywhere was declining my checks. They were being used so quickly. It was a nightmare. But he was like, "Don't worry. When you wake up in the morning, I'll give you some cash. You can get there. You can write me a check later. It'll be fine." And so I was like, "Cool." But it was the weirdest, like, because I didn't know these people at all. And we finally were leaving the comedy venue about 2 or 3 in the evening after a fight broke out, and like this guy, one of the other comedians that was staying there, he like actually like saved my life because this dude I was trying to break up a fight, but it looked like I was trying to like get in the fight, and so that's how and so before I mean I'm no fighter, I would have gotten beat up so bad. This guy just came over and just tackled him and took care of him. It was one of the other comedians I was staying with that night. But we go to this house, and right away, like the guy who I knew went to sleep, so I didn't get to see him. His girlfriend or woman got very high on cocaine and was repeating the same conversation. And she really wanted to slow cook steak for us on this. So we had to wait hours for the steak on a griddle. The whole house was covered in dog poop. It was disgusting. She kept asking me because I think when you're on stuff like you have really short-term memory loss or whatever, and so she kept asking me if I was gay so she could set me up with her friend who just broke up with his boyfriend. And so I feel like about 20 times in the conversation I was like, "Oh no, I'm not gay. But you know, I'm sorry for your friend." And then like later in conversations like, "Are you seeing anyone? Because I know this guy that would be perfect for you." And I was like, "Well, I think finally I was like, I do. I have a boyfriend. I can't. I'm sorry." but and then this is all of that was crazy and weird, but the weirdest point was finally she left to go do whatever she was doing, and it was just me and the comedian who'd saved my life earlier in the night. And I had my laptop out, and he was just like, "Hey man, do you watch Days of Our Lives?" And I was like, "Can't say as I do." And he's like, "Okay." He's like, "I know we just met, but like I'm a huge fan, and like I'm an episode behind, and they're airing their next one here in a few hours, and we're gonna see it, but I need to catch up. Is it cool if we watch Days of Your Life on your laptop?" And so we're like in this dog poop infested living room. There's just like a couple really close by seats that we're sitting on. And I was like, sure, whatever. So he opened up the laptop. We watched Days of Our Lives. This large, like intimidating, scary man who just like defended me in a bar fight is telling me the storyline as it's happening. It could not have been a weirder thing. And then I was very young in comedy. I was very young. I think I was 24, 25, and I was just so nervous the whole night about the place. So I didn't even wait to get the guy's money to get me back with gas money. I just left. I slept for a few hours and just left. And I do remember on the way home, I almost made it home, and I had to like at a gas station ask a stranger for money, and the guy gave me like the biggest like, "You're probably using this on drugs" look ever. Yeah, so that's my craziest road story.
Oh my goodness, Drew. Wild. Okay, let's you got some kind of special coming up you want to talk about?
Yes. So I am released my second comedy album. It's called $11 Jokes, and it will be on YouTube and Spotify, and you can buy it on all streaming services, and it will be all over the place. It's coming out on November 11th at 11:11 a.m. Really trying to keep the 11 there to help people. And you can follow me at Drew Davis Comedy, and you can see all the postings about it. It's on my YouTube channel, or it will be. And it's one of those things where if you want to support support what I'm doing and stuff like that, you can pay for it, but it's also going to be free on YouTube and Spotify. So I love it when people buy it on Apple Music and all this stuff. Like I'm a big fan of that. But honestly, if you just want to listen to it or share it with friends, like that is a big help as well. So that's
nice.
It's happening next month, and I'm really excited about it.
Tell me a little bit about how you produced it, filmed it, and distributed it.
Yes, so this album has been a bit of a bear, but I did want to do. I felt I was in a place where I needed to produce something else. My first album was in 2019, and at the time I thought I was done with comedy. And so it was kind of like a final point. And this one kind of felt like more like if you just signed up to a dating service after finishing a marriage and you're wanting to let the world know that you're back out there and please swipe right on me. That's why I was like making a second album, and this one's all about kind of my journey into full-time comedy. And it's an independently produced one, so it doesn't mean it's like Dry Bar, Netflix. No one's it was my own money, found my own people. The weird thing about this one is I got the same group of people that did my first one, and the first one, the quality is very good, like awesome. If you listen to it, you're like, oh man, everything's mixed really well. The second one, I don't know what happened, and they did their best once I told them I was dissatisfied with it to try to fix it up, but it just they did not mic the audience, and so my mic was great, and then like everything else was rough, which for a special is not good. So what I did was, and anyone who listens to this, you're going to either love this or hate this when you hear it.
I can see where this is going.
Yeah, I went back to all of my recordings of shows that I've done where I've done the same jokes and I got laugh tracks of my own because I hate laugh tracks. I don't ever want to get fake laugh tracks, but I found my of people laughing at the same jokes. And so I actually put those in. So when you listen to the album, you're hearing laughs from all across the country, which I think is kind of cool. But it also might seem kind of weird and annoying. But it's added something. It's a unique album. People are either gonna love it or be like, what did he record this on, like a cassette player? Like, what's the deal? So it's fun. I feel like it
And
turned
how
out
is it
well.
being distributed?
It is going to be.
Does the label do that, or are you using like
Oh
DistroKid?
yeah, so I work through a website called cdbaby.com, which is
okay.
we're independent. So I put up all the stuff there, and then it kind of does the work to distribute all the things.
That's
You pick
audio
all
only, right?
Yes, that's audio only, but then I'll have a YouTube video on as well.
Yep.
So
Nice. Awesome, Drew. Well, it's been great chatting with you.
Yeah, this was so much fun, Mark. Thanks for having
Keep
me.
booking comedy. I love talking this stuff,
Absolutely.
especially with you. And I'll see you soon. I'm going to end this now, but stay on. All right,
Okay.
everybody, tune in next Monday. We will